Today, President Obama spoke at an event sponsored by the otherwise secretive religious group known as the Family. Every president since Dwight Eisenhower has appeared at the family-sponsored National Prayer Breakfast. But this year, both the event itself and the president's attendance got a lot more attention and more criticism than usual, thanks to the family's suddenly high profile in the news. Since the last National Prayer Breakfast, the family's been in the news for all sorts of things you do not want to be in the news for if you are a secretive religious group. First, there were the count them, three Republican sex scandals linked to the now infamous C Street house, where members of Congress live in Washington. And then, of course, came evidence of the family's ties to legislation calling for the death penalty for gay people. The so-called Kill the Gays bill was introduced in the Ugandan parliament by a legislator who is a member of the family. He's, in fact, an organizer of that country's National Prayer Breakfast. We've been looking into the family's influence on the Kill the Gays bill on this show for months. On Monday, we addressed the controversy over President Obama's decision to attend the family-sponsored National Prayer Breakfast with Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. That group was calling for the president to not attend the event. The president did go to the National Prayer Breakfast this morning, but both he and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton took the opportunity of being there to address the controversy about the family and the Kill the Gays bill head on.
But religion, cloaked in naked power lust, is used to justify horrific violence. Religion is used as a club to deny the human rights of girls and women from the Gulf to Africa to Asia, and to discriminate, even advocating the execution of gays and lesbians.
We may disagree about gay marriage, but surely we can agree that it is unconscionable to target gays and lesbians for who they are, whether it's here in the United States or, as Hillary mentioned, more extremely and odious laws that are being proposed, most recently in Uganda.
That's one way to send a message to the Kill the Gays proponents in Uganda and the Americans who have influenced them. Here are a couple of other ways. A pair of Washington groups, Foreign Policy in Focus and a group called Full Equality Now, staged a protest outside the C Street house last night on the eve of the National Prayer Breakfast. And a coalition of religious and gay rights groups put together an alternative to the National Prayer Breakfast this year. They called it the American Prayer Hour. It was held in more than a dozen cities across the country today. These are images of the American Prayer Hour today in Dallas, Texas. The multi-city event was announced at a press conference on Tuesday, at which a gay man from Uganda who's seeking asylum in this country spoke about what it means to be gay in his country as the Kill the Gays bill is debated there. He delivered his remarks, as you can see here, with a bag over his head because he's afraid for his own safety if he is publicly identified as gay. As written, the law would make it an extraditable offense for this man to come out as gay anywhere in the world. As a Ugandan citizen, he would be forcibly sent back to Uganda for prosecution and even potentially to be executed. Joining us now is our second Gene Robinson of the evening, Bishop Gene Robinson. He's the first openly gay bishop in the Episcopal Church. He helped organize the American Prayer Hour today. Bishop Robinson, thank you so much for your time. It's nice to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Rachel. It's nice to be back.
How did the American Prayer Hour go today?
It went very well. It was in upwards of 20 cities, and while the National Prayer Breakfast was going on, we had communities gathered all the way to Anchorage, Alaska, praying for these good people of Uganda. You know, I was in Uganda doing AIDS work, helping set up a national AIDS education program back in the early 90s. And I don't think I've ever met a more hospitable and wonderful people. And yet we've got these conservative Christians going in and lighting the fires of hatred, which must break God's heart to see parents turning on their children who happen to be gay or lesbian.
I understand, Bishop, that you had a meeting at the White House this week in which you talked to the president about this. What did you say to him, if you're at liberty to tell us?
Actually, the president was here in New Hampshire the day I was at the White House, but we did talk with some of his advisors and talk to them about the importance of our government, making it quite clear that we would not cooperate with anything like these proposed draconian laws. And, you know, one of the reasons that we are making some progress here with respect to gay and lesbian, bisexual, and transgender rights is that in America, so many of us have come out. And there's hardly a family left that doesn't know a family member or a coworker or a former classmate to be gay or lesbian. And that's just not going to happen in Uganda when coming out can subject you to beatings. Lesbians are almost routinely raped in order to cure them of their homosexuality. And horrific things are happening there. And so this really can't just happen from the grassroots. We must use our leverage, and I'm so glad that Secretary Clinton and President Obama today took this opportunity to highlight this.
You were satisfied with the way that they addressed it, and you think that do you think it'll make a difference in terms of what happens in Uganda?
I think it does make a difference. You know, there's an old saying that the church is pretty good at pulling drowning people out of a river. You know, we're good at the charity thing. But what we need to do is to walk back upstream and figure out who's throwing them in the first place. And I think President Clinton, President Obama and Secretary Clinton today made the first in those efforts for us to begin to identify these religious groups who it's horrifying to me, but in the name of God are going over and stoking the fires of hatred. And you know even in California forest fires, when someone lights a fire and then it gets out of control, we hold those people accountable. Well, we have religious leaders going overseas and starting these fires of hatred. And then when they get out of control and result in a bill like the one we see calling for the death penalty for gay and lesbian people, they back off and say, oh my goodness, I never meant anything like that. I'm sorry. We have to hold them responsible because they are throwing gay and lesbian children in that river and they are drowning.
Do you think, Bishop Robinson, that the American Prayer Hour will become an annual event? Do you think that it's possible that politicians could be drawn away from the National Prayer Breakfast? Do you think the family, the fellowship, the organization that supports it has gotten itself in deep enough water here that people may start to pull away from them at that event?
I think it's a possibility. We need to be careful with whom we associate, and I think the family has used the National Prayer Breakfast as a way of acquiring a sort of a patina of respectability and credibility. And so perhaps in another year, maybe we ought to offer an alternative event so that our congressional people and even the president himself will need to think long and hard about whether they want to lend the credibility of their presence to such a group.
Bishop Gene Robinson, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you making time for us. Thank you.
You're very welcome.